He thought the morning would start like always. Coffee, the newspaper, silence. But instead of the usual headlines came an ultimatum. She was tired, she was leaving, she wanted a divorce. He looked at her like a dead lamp. No warmth, no light, just another object in the room. No shouting, no scene. Only the calm of a predator who had long known the prey would walk into the trap on its own. In his hands wasn't paper. It was a sentence. He had known everything for a while. The lover, the lies, the sweet talk, the cheap excuses. And he had a plan. Not revenge, surgical precision. Every move calculated, every dollar accounted for. She thought he'd crumble. She was wrong. He had already launched a war with no prisoners, no mercy, only cold justice. And by the time she realized everything was lost, it would be far too late. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. Monday began like countless others. Breakfast was done, and we were sitting at the kitchen table. I had my coffee in hand, flipping through the paper when my wife interrupted the silence. Caleb, can you put that down? We need to talk. I lowered the newspaper and met her gaze. I'm finished, Caleb. I want a divorce. That it? I said, casually turning to the sports section. I'm not joking, she insisted. I didn't respond. Her tone sharpened. For once, can you stop hiding behind that paper and actually talk to me? There's nothing left to say, I replied, shrugging. Goodbye works fine. You stopped being a wife a long time ago. Go ahead, walk out. No one's stopping you. I placed the paper aside, stood up, and made my way to the office. From my desk, I pulled out a notepad and a pen. I reached into a drawer, retrieved an envelope, and went back to the kitchen. At the top of the fresh page, I scrawled, Trevor, thank you. Really, you're doing me a favor. Truthfully, I meant it. I was grateful she was leaving. Just as I was about to fold the paper, I hesitated. I pulled a lottery ticket from my wallet, the one I'd bought the night before, and tucked it inside. Then I added a final note. Maybe, if your luck holds out, the winnings will keep her from straying again. You'll need all the help you can get. I signed it, folded it precisely, sealed the envelope, wrote his name on the front, and handed it over. Give this to him next time you see him. She stood there stunned. Her expression said more than words. You thought I was clueless? I said, taking the envelope back. Just because I don't say anything doesn't mean I don't see everything. Then I added, on second thought, I'll mail it myself. Something tells me you wouldn't be able to resist tearing it open, reading it, and dumping it in the trash. Start packing. You want it out, so go, and fast. I expect you gone by tonight. I'm not going anywhere, she snapped. I'm not about to make it easy for you to move her in. I stood, filled a travel mug with coffee, and headed out. My first stop was the bank. I closed our joint accounts and emptied the safety deposit box. Then I drove to another branch near my office and opened new accounts under my name alone. Next came the credit cards. I called the provider, canceled every shared card, and ordered new ones for myself. Then it was back to business as usual. I stayed late that evening. Afterward, I grabbed dinner and drinks with Melissa, my executive assistant. While we ate, I casually brought up my new relationship status and asked if her sister was still interested. She grinned. Forget my sister. If you're single again, I'm in. Melissa had started off as a receptionist over 10 years ago. She was sharp, driven. I gave her a promotion after 4 years, and 2 more years later, she was running my schedule and most of the office logistics. There was a time I invited her to a weekend cookout. She declined. Her sister was in town. I told her to bring her along. That's when I met Tessa, a striking blonde with generous curves. On Monday, Melissa joked that her sister had developed a crush. I laughed and said, let's hope Kara never finds out. She's got a temper like you wouldn't believe. Now Melissa was sitting across from me, showing her cards, something I hadn't seen coming. Well then, I teased, Tessa's demoted. You've got top priority. I'm not playing around, she said. I mean it. I should give you fair warning, I replied. Once you know the full picture, you might change your mind. Go ahead, try me. She wants a divorce. I'm letting her and her boyfriend figure out their mess now. She was seeing someone? For about a year and a half. I guess the side relationship wasn't enough anymore. How long have you known? Since day one. How? A buddy saw her go into a motel with some guy and tipped me off. I hired a private investigator. Within a week, I had all the proof I needed. And you just sat on it for that long? What else was I going to do? Blow everything up out of pride. In this state, it doesn't matter who cheated. A divorce would still mean splitting assets right down the middle, house and all. That means selling my house, losing my pool, the hot tub, the garage, my workshop. I'd be stuck in a cramped apartment. No thanks. I decided to wait it out. She still cooked, did laundry, kept the house clean. How'd you manage to live with her knowing? It's strange. Love turns into resentment faster than you'd think. And from there, it just turns to indifference. I'm surprised you managed without intimate. Who said I went without? When she offered, I took it. It happened less often, sure, but I never touched her on the days I knew she was with him. Other than that, the only meaningful change was how our intimacy turned cold, just physical, stripped of emotion. Can you even imagine what could have driven her to that place? I genuinely can't. But I seriously doubt this guy was her first. Do I think she's been with others? I don't have proof, but my gut says yes. Over the course of our 10-year marriage, I can point to 4 separate stretches when she acted just like she has recently. Withdrawn, detached, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. Each of those phases bore the same signs as what I've been seeing for the past 18 months, starting right around the time she met this guy. I can't confirm anything, but I'd wager those previous shifts were tied to other affairs. If I hadn't uncovered this current one, I probably would have written it off as another one of her depressive spells. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the signs, but it doesn't really matter anymore. This time, I have undeniable evidence. She's been cheating. So what's the plan now? I'm going to hold off. Wait. For what exactly? For her to make a move. She's on her own now. I emptied our shared accounts, canceled every credit card in her name, and told her to get out. She said she wanted a divorce. So fine, let her take that first step. With her salary, there's no way she can afford both a lawyer and a new place, so she'll have to lean on her new boyfriend for support, assuming he's willing. Maybe they've already figured it all out, but I have no way of knowing. What I do know is this. If you're serious about being with me, you're signing up for a man who's legally still married and has no clue how long this process will drag on. You're looking at this all wrong, Caleb. What are you getting at? If she initiates things, she's in control of the narrative. You'll be the one being served, and that puts you on the back foot. She can say whatever she wants. She might go to court and claim you abused her, emotionally, physically, whatever it takes, and ask for a protective order. That could get you thrown out of your own home while the dust settles. You can't let her take the lead. You need to be the one setting the pace. Force her to respond to you, not the other way around. And honestly, you'd be helping me out in the process. Helping you? How so? Well, if you wait for her to file and she doesn't, for whatever reason, we'll be stuck in this awkward in-between. If we start anything now, while you're still legally married, she might use it against you. You say she cheated, but she could spin it and say you were unfaithful too. Filing first makes your stance clear. In your mind, the marriage was over. From that point on, your private life is your own. Sure, technically it's still adultery, but no judge will care once the paperwork's already in motion. So unless one of you pulls the trigger, I need to keep my distance. If we leave it to her, this could drag on forever, or wrap up next week. Either way, she's still in control. But if you file, you can call a lawyer tomorrow and have her served by Thursday. That gives me the weekend to convince you. Convince me? I'm being serious, Caleb. What's the point in being first in line if I don't make the most of it? And she had a valid point. It finally clicked for me. I picked up my phone and hit speed dial for Adrian. We'd been close since we were kids, and now he worked as a divorce lawyer. Technically, he called himself a family attorney, but let's be real. It was mostly splits and custody battles. When he picked up, I told him everything and asked if he'd represent me. He was surprised, a little stunned. He and his wife Sally were friends with both me and Kara, but he said he'd take care of it first thing tomorrow. He asked me to stop by his office around noon to sign the papers, then grab lunch. As a half joke, though maybe not really, I told him I wanted to file for a restraining order too. I lied and said Kara had warned me that if I made things difficult, Trevor, her new guy, would beat the crap out of me. Adrian laughed and said it sounded far-fetched, but he agreed to file it anyway. You know there'll be a hearing in 10 days, right? I can file the request, but a judge will have to review it to keep it in effect. I told him that was fine. All I needed was for her to be gone, and stay gone. Since there are no kids, she doesn't have much legal ground to demand the house during the process. I'm leaning on that old rule. Possession is 9/10 of the law. I don't see any judge telling me to leave and letting her move back in. That's the position I'm holding on to. I'd already told her to move out that morning, but I had no clue what I'd come home to. She might have left, or she could still be there. Just in case, I figured it was better to serve her at work. Think there's any shot you two could resolve this amicably? Not even slightly. Then I'll see you tomorrow, Adrian said. I hung up and turned to Melissa. So, what's your plan for this weekend? She told me. I've got to admit it sounded pretty damn appealing. When I got back to the house, Kara was still there, sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through a stack of papers. Why haven't you left yet? I asked, grabbing a beer from the fridge. I have just as much right to this place as you do, she snapped. I'll go when I've got somewhere to go, and if you've got a problem with that, you can leave. Not happening. Sit down, she said. We need to talk this through. There's nothing left to say, I told her. I've made up my mind. Whatever you're planning, it's not my concern. There are still things we need to work out, Caleb. No, Kara. There really aren't. There's nothing left to clarify. You made your position clear. You want out. So go ahead and make it official. Retain a lawyer, finalize the documents, and foot the bill. But don't think I'm going to sit back and make this easy for you. I intend to fight for every inch of ground. Since we're in a no-fault divorce state, everything has to be divided equally. That means some tough choices lie ahead about who ends up with what. I'll stretch this out as long as legally possible just to pile on your attorney fees. And let's not pretend you're unaware. Lawyers don't come cheap. You've got your sights set on that coffee table? Too bad. It suddenly means a great deal to me, too. The couch? Forget it, Kara. That's staying right where it is. Now it holds emotional value, or so I'll claim. Why does it matter now? Who knows? You didn't flinch when I brought up divorce. You just told me to pack and get out. That was before the reality settled in. I looked her in the eye and finally leapt. The first few times I thought about leaving, I stayed. You always came back, and I always held on, quiet, faithful, and in love. But when I mentioned those earlier moments and she looked away, that told me everything I needed to know. Even now, I can't quite explain why I stayed with you. I didn't file right away because I kept blaming myself, convinced I'd somehow driven you to this. I thought it was temporary, some impulsive retaliation. I told myself once the affairs ended, you'd remember you loved me. I looked down and realized how filthy my shoes had become. At first, I assumed Trevor was just another in a string of mistakes. Now I see I misjudged the depth of it. You're not just unfaithful, you're fundamentally dishonest. If it hadn't been him, someone else would have filled the role soon enough. That realization lit a fire in me. I imagined lashing out, even violence, but that would only land me behind bars. So I settled on the only lawful revenge available. Make every step of this divorce as slow and expensive as possible for you. Yes, the house is jointly owned. If you decide to stay, I can't stop you. But don't expect conversation or civility. Pick one of the guest rooms and keep your distance. I drained the last of my beer and walked upstairs to what used to be our bedroom. I'd done what I needed to. Now it was her turn to deal with Trevor and figure out her next steps, however long that might take. That would give Adrian time to serve her the paperwork and request the restraining order. Then again, maybe she'd already consulted a lawyer and set the process in motion. Still, I had already cleared out the joint accounts when I shut down the credit cards. The withdrawal amount lined up exactly with what I'd estimated. If she had hired an attorney, she would have needed that money, unless Trevor bankrolled it. So I waited. I hoped Adrian wouldn't waste time. I left the house early before Kara came out of her room and had breakfast at a small bed and breakfast cafe. While sipping my coffee, I made a list of people to contact after she'd been served. I wasn't going to let her control the story. I'd make sure everyone heard my side first. Later that morning, while I was at work, Melissa chatted about how much she was looking forward to the weekend. And for the first time in ages, I felt a flicker of hope that it might actually be good. I met with Adrian during lunch, signed the divorce documents, and he said he'd head straight to the clerk's office to file. "You still want her served at her job?" he asked. "No question." I told him to aim for around 10. I wanted to have the locks changed before she made it home. Back at the office, I arranged to take the following day off. Before I headed back to the house, I called a locksmith and paid extra for an emergency appointment. It wasn't cheap, but it felt worth every cent. When I got home, her car was already in the driveway, but she stayed hidden away in her room. I never saw her. The next morning, I left before she surfaced again and returned to the same cafe. Nina, the waitress, looked at me and asked, "Where's Kara? You're usually together, and now it's just you 2 days in a row." "We're separating," I told her plainly. She gave a small nod like she had expected as much, then returned with the check. On the back was a note. "That number, it's mine, not the restaurant's." It caught me completely off guard. In just 48 hours, 2 women had shown interest, and yet the woman I married never once made me feel like I was enough. I wouldn't ask why. I didn't need to hear the answer. I sipped my coffee, flipping through the paper, and waited until I was sure she'd left for work. Then I went home and began moving her belongings into the garage. At 10:15 on the dot, Adrian called. "She's been served," he said. I immediately contacted the locksmith. Within 20 minutes, he was swapping out the locks. Less than an hour later, Kara came flying up the driveway in a rage. There was no way she missed the wide-open garage or the giant cardboard sign taped to the wall. "Kara, all your stuff is in the garage." She stood still for a while, staring at the sign out front before trying the lock. Predictably, her keys didn't work. She rang the bell. I ignored it. After lingering a few moments, she turned and walked away. Out of curiosity, I peeked into the garage and saw she'd already collected a few bags. Less than 2 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway, my phone lit up. "Kara." "You're such an ass," she spat. "Was it really necessary to embarrass me in front of everyone at the office?" "Better than letting you shame me in front of my own co-workers," I replied calmly. "What the hell is this crap about a restraining order?" "I figured you'd send Trevor to rough me up for disrespecting you," I said, cutting her off. "You want the rest of your stuff? It's in the garage. I didn't change the code, so your opener should still work. If anything's missing, just send me a list with where to find it, and I'll set it aside." "Don't be ridiculous, Caleb. You're blowing this way out of proportion." "I'm sorry, Kara," I said, my tone cold. "I know it's a small consequence compared to what I went through, but I need this. for my peace of mind. And you should be glad I kept my cool, I added before ending the call. After hanging up, I sat down and started calling people from my contact list. Most were shocked when I told them Kara had cheated. Two weren't. One said, "Well, about time someone caught her." The other assumed we were in an open relationship, saying, "She was always out with someone, and you never said anything." I promptly scratched both of them off my list of friends. Kara's parents were the most stunned. They couldn't believe it and insisted there had to be some kind of mistake. I'd always gotten along well with them. They treated me like a son. But I knew if she got to them first and spun her version, they'd turn against me. I couldn't let that happen. Once the calls were done, I went through the house again, grabbing anything of hers I'd missed. Then I made myself some lunch. As I was finishing up, the guys from Aries Security arrived. They seemed skeptical of me, but even more certain Kara wouldn't respect the restraining order. After everything that had gone down, I figured a full setup, cameras and all, was worth the investment. At work that Thursday, I let Melissa know we were all set for the weekend. Her face lit up. "Dinner and dancing tomorrow?" she asked, smiling to match mine. Sure enough, that night Kara came back. She took a few more items and then broke in through the garage's interior door. The kitchen was trashed, shattered dishes and broken glasses everywhere. The living room didn't escape either, lamps knocked over and smashed. But what truly stunned me was the bedroom. She'd ripped all my clothes from the closet, piled them on the floor, and urinated on them. Fortunately, the cameras had caught everything. She'd blatantly broken the restraining order and done it with spite. I called Adrian right away, and he contacted the police. They showed up fast, took our statements, and documented the damage with photos. The next day, Kara was arrested at work. She was booked, fingerprinted, and appeared before a judge on charges of violating the restraining order and intentional destruction of property. To my surprise, the judge released her without bail, but set a court date. That evening, Melissa and I still went out, and it went off without a hitch. We made plans for Saturday, too. That date went just as smoothly. Sunday, we capped the weekend with a peaceful picnic. Then Monday rolled around, and it was time for the hearing. The judge reviewed the footage and didn't hesitate. The restraining order was made permanent. He ordered Kara to pay for all the damaged items, cover dry cleaning for the soiled clothes, and pay for professional cleaning of the entire bedroom. She had 10 days to comply or face jail time for contempt. Pettily, I found the most expensive cleaning company I could and hired them. I wanted her to feel it. Unfortunately, she came up with the money and fulfilled all the court's demands. I never got the satisfaction of seeing her locked up. Over the next couple of weeks, Melissa and I kept seeing each other. Things stayed physically modest. Just a few intense kisses now and then. Understandable, considering I was still legally married. But there was something genuine growing between us. Kara and I didn't fight over the divorce. We settled on a no-fault agreement and split everything 50-50. I refinanced the house and bought her out. What she never knew was that I'd been saving in a secret account for a luxurious anniversary trip that never happened. Since she didn't know it existed, she got none of it. She also had no idea about the 2 CDs stashed in the safe, funded by my last 2 bonuses. Those stayed in my hands as well. And I had one final, minor victory. She was granted alimony, but only $100 per week for 2 years or until she remarried. She'd asked for $500, but the judge shot that down quickly. Later, Adrian told me we got lucky. Both the judge from the restraining order hearing and the divorce judge were cousins. Even better, both had been burned by cheating spouses themselves. They followed the law to the letter, but they weren't about to go out of their way to shield someone like Kara. And they made sure I wasn't punished for being the one who stayed loyal in a broken marriage. Whatever had transpired between Kara and Trevor clearly didn't amount to much. Barely 7 months after their divorce was finalized, she'd packed up and moved back in with her folks. Just 4 weeks later, 8 months after Kara and I had officially parted ways, I found myself eating lunch alone at the bar inside the Hilton. I was halfway through a steak sandwich, nursing a beer, when someone took the stool next to mine and offered to buy me a drink. I turned, and there he was, the guy Kara had left me for. I was curious, so I told him to go ahead. He waved to Agnes, the bartender, and ordered 2 beers. After she delivered them, he took a swig, set his bottle down, and just stared at it. He started peeling the label off, letting the shreds collect in front of him. Then, without even glancing in my direction, he said, "I never meant to screw things up for you." He told me that when he first met Kara, there was no ring on her finger. He had no idea she was married. "She sure wasn't acting like someone's wife," he said. "She was out at Bud's with some co-workers. I asked her to dance. She said yes. Bought her a drink, and the next thing I knew, I was sitting at her table with the rest of the group. We danced again, more than once, and when I asked if she wanted to go out sometime, she didn't hesitate." He confessed he'd fallen for her, hard. Within weeks, they were sleeping together as often as they could. At that time, they had to sneak around. His apartment was off limits, thanks to 2 ever-present roommates. Her place wasn't available either. She told him she was caring for her disabled mother, which meant she could only go out when someone else could stay with her. Eventually, he got a place of his own, which made things easier. They still had to be discreet, but he was in deep and thinking about proposing. He was even looking at houses, hoping to find something big enough for him, Kara, and the mother she claimed to be looking after. But before he could take that step, someone pulled him aside and asked why he was dating a woman known for cheating. His first instinct was to hit the guy. Then came the truth. Kara was married. And not only that, she'd done this before. She'd had an affair with the guy's brother 2 years earlier. When her husband, me, found out, he threw her out. At first, he refused to believe it, but then he received a letter from me. It sat unopened for a week before he finally confronted her. She broke down crying, told him she never loved me, painted me as an abusive drunk who beat her and tore her down emotionally. She said she stayed out of fear, that I'd threatened to kill her and any man she ended up with. But he started checking out her story. And the deeper he looked, the more obvious it became. She was lying. Whatever dreams he had of marrying her evaporated. Nevertheless, according to him, the intimacy was amazing. And since she had nowhere else to live after I kicked her out, he let her move in with him, on one condition. She had to keep sleeping with him. It worked, at first, but once the divorce was official, she started hinting at marriage. He shut it down immediately. He opened up to me about his past, how his mother had cheated on his dad, then did it again with her second husband, and once more with her third. That history had cemented a belief in him. Cheaters don't change. He told Kara plainly, if she wanted something casual, fine. If she was hoping for more, it was over. 3 weeks after that, he came home and found she'd moved out. He took another drink, then mentioned he'd heard rumors I'd known about their affair all along. Why hadn't I just ended it the moment I found out? I shrugged. Like you said, she was incredible in bed. Plus, I had someone cooking meals, doing laundry, keeping the house in order. I added that I might have let it keep going if she hadn't brought up splitting up and filing for divorce. He studied his beer, then looked at me. Can't believe I'm saying this to you of all people, but I actually miss her in my bed. He finished his drink, reached into his pocket, and slid something across the counter. What's this? I asked. Another one of those lottery tickets you always talked about? It's a winner, he replied. Half of it's yours. It was a cashier's check. The amount stunned me. I held on to it, he explained, so you wouldn't have to split it with her during the divorce. And with that, he stood up and walked away. When I got back to the office, Jan, my assistant, looked up from her desk. You've got that smug look, she said. Was lunch that good? I grinned. It was unforgettable, Oh, by the way, she added, as if just remembering, Melissa's not working here anymore. Nope, I said. She's at home now getting the nursery ready. The twins are almost here. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend.